Hi, I'm Emily with Flowers with Emily. I'm so glad you're joining me today for this flower arranging tutorial. You're gonna love it. If you haven't already dabbled into floral design, it's addicting, and the more you do it, the better you get at it and the more you love it. So I'm just warning you ahead of time. But today I found this vase in my mom's cupboard. So I love borrowing vases from people. So we are going to take this fun little shaped vase and we are going to add some Gerber daisies and some greenery, and we're going to make a really fun arrangement. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start with some greenery. I have a couple different greenery options, and I'm just going to kind of hold them up to kind of see, like this one's a little more spiky, this one's a little more soft and subdued. So I'm just holding them up to kind of see what vibe and creative direction I want to go. And I think I'm going to go with the kind of more spiky, funky greens. I wish I knew the name of these particular ones, but the packaging on Trader Joe's just says assorted greens. So we're going to just have to go with that for now. But we have these beautiful greens. I'm going to take it and I'm going to clip it. One way to get some more mileage off of your stems when you're cutting an arrangement is you want to make sure that there's no greenery below the vase line or the water line. And the reason being is if you leave leaves in the water, it will create bacteria and mold so much faster, which kills your flowers. So you want clean water. Well, you want a clean vase, you want clean water, and you also don't want any leaves to go below the water line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip these off of here. And this is a great tip. So when you're just starting out and you're learning how to design flowers, you want to pull your vase to the very edge of your table and you kind of hold it up and down. Do I want to cut it there? Do I want to cut it there? And then you cut it right where the edge of the table is. I've been doing this for a long time, so I don't need to use that trick as often, but I still do sometimes. So it's really great. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to clip off these smaller ones. We can use those in a smaller arrangement later, like a little bud vase or something. And I'm just going to start filling this vase with some greenery. And what we want to do is create you just want to place a bunch of stems like crisscrossing to create kind of almost like a tic-tac-toe kind of for your flowers. So when you stick them in, they don't just fall to the side because you're creating kind of arms to hold them up with the greenery. So you just kind of do that as you go. So I'm just going to keep clipping here really fast. Another tip, always cut longer than you think, because say I cut it, kind of long and I'm like, oh, that's a little longer than, and it kind of leans and it's more floppy than I want. So then I can cut it shorter. But once you cut it, you can't add length back. So it's always better to use a little bit of caution before you cut it rather than wish that you had been a little bit more careful because you can't add the length back. You always want to cut your stems on a 45-degree angle. It gives more surface value, or more surface area rather, for the stem to pull in water and drink. And also when the stem is sitting in the bottom of the vase, it's not just completely touching the vase. It's kind of it has a lift for the stem so that the water can actually get under there and drink. So I'm just going to keep adding more stems to my vase. Just kind of create like this nice little fun greenery. The other thing you can do when you're starting to create your vase, or your arrangement rather, is you kind of want to assess how tall you want it and how wide you want it. And roughly a rule of thumb is about 1.5 times the height of the vase, and then you can kind of decide how wide you want it. I'm not quite going as tall with the greenery. That's just a personal preference. So like I said, you can always start a little bit taller and then cut back based on your personal preference. And you don't have to do it just like me. That's the beauty of this. Okay, so this one's a little shorty, so I'm just gonna quickly pull these off with my hands, cut it on an angle, I'm gonna put it in the middle. And as you can see, let's see, I think these are all shorties. So I'll put these back in the water. We can use them later. But here I go. I have this pretty little spot for my Gerber daisies. So now I'm going to, I love this bright orange. It's so happy. Really, really pretty. I'm gonna tuck this in the bucket for now so it doesn't blow away. It's kind of nice if you clean up as you go. Sometimes I don't clean up and then I have this like massive mess at the end and I'm like, what is, it's not always fun at the end to clean it up. But so I'm gonna pull that to the edge of the vase. I'm gonna start taller, see how I like it. And I'm just gonna kind of let the daisies do their thing. I love that they all kind of have a different shape to them. So we're just going to see what happens and then we can always rearrange later. A thing that I always like to say in my floral classes is that there's always a point in the arrangement when you hit puberty and you're like, ooh, this is the moment when you're not feeling great about yourself, you have acne and braces, you don't think you're ever going to recover. You just have to push through that moment. I promise it does get better. So if you kind of panic, that's totally normal. Creating an arrangement. But just know that you got to get on the other side. So, and the flowers will kind of tell you what they want to do. So sometimes I go with that, sometimes I don't. So we're just going to keep adding them to the mix. And so right now what I'm seeing is I don't really have enough greenery to fill out the middle. So I'm going to cut these a little bit shorter and I'm going to tuck these gerbs right in the middle to kind of give it some varying height and to kind of fill out that middle section. But it still needs a little bit of greenery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my greenery again. And you know what? I actually kind of like it. I changed my mind. That's another thing. You can always reserve the right to change your mind and pivot or add something else that you didn't think you were going to use before. So, oh, and see, look how great that is. Has a nice little shape. It's not straight up and down, which I really like. And this is going to fill in the center of this arrangement really nicely, and kind of create more spaces for the Gerber daisies. Give them more spots to like fill in. Won't look as empty in the middle. And then I have these nice longer pieces. So I'm going to add these as well. And make sure again that no leaves go into the vase. So we don't want to create any mold. Oh, I'm just loving this. I'm glad I added the variety because it kind of just needed a little something extra. So let's see, I'm going to actually cut a couple of these down and leave these two long and stick them in over here. And then I'm going to, where did the other one go? Oh, it fell in the front. Just going to pull those leaves off really fast with my fingers, kind of stick those in the middle and just like grab it and pull it down and stick those in the middle. See, now I am regretting a little bit how short I cut those smaller gerbs, so I'm pulling them up. But what that means is I'm going to need to make sure every day I fill this vase up, because the second those stems don't have water, the flower petals are going to wilt. So that is another reason why you don't want to cut your flowers too short, because they will wilt so much faster if they're not touching the water. So here I have this really fun arrangement. I have two types of greenery, one bunch of Gerber daisies, and I'm also going to add in, for fun, another element. These are called Crispidia, or they're also known as Billy Balls. I just love them. They're round, they're yellow. They're one of my favorite things. So we are going to add those to the mix. They also came with some flower food, which I'm not going to add right now, but that would ideally be added at the beginning of your arrangement so it can kind of mix into the water. And we're just going to add in, I'm just going to tweak these, kind of play with them where I want them to sit and face, what direction. And I would try to stay away from like, you know, putting one here, putting one here, putting one here, putting one here, because it tends to look very polka dotty. You kind of want to pair your elements, so to speak, so it doesn't read so much like polka dots. Although if that's the look you want to go for it. So right now they look a little polka dot, so I'm going to kind of pair up these with this so that they don't look like they're alone. And, oh great, thanks. My little boy found my clippers for me, my favorite pair of clippers. These are like second fiddle, so I'm excited he found my other clippers for me. Anyways, so here is a really fun, let me move these out of the way a little bit so you can see it. Here's a really fun, bright, happy, easy arrangement. I can continue to play and twist and just kind of reshape if I want, or I can go put it on the table. And one thing I would recommend is make sure you always take a picture of your arrangement so that you can see the progression, because it's really fun to see, oh, this is the first arrangement I made, and then like 4 or 5 later, you're like, oh, I'm getting kind of good at this. These are looking good. So if you saw the first wedding I did, Jessie, if you're watching, I'm very sorry. You were my first pancake. My dear friend growing up, hers was the first wedding, and it turned out beautiful, and I hope it was what she wanted. But looking back now, I'm like, oh man, I was so new as a designer, and I have so much more experience now, but there's no shame in starting where you are and just getting better and having more fun with it. So I hope you enjoy.